You're with Julian on the Brown Note and a Glastonbury 2025 roundup based on two issues solely, which is Neil Young versus Charli XCX and Kneecap versus Bob Vylan. Now, that was El Dorado, one of my all-time favourite Neil Young tracks, which he didn't play at the festival. He played Keep On Rocking in the Free World from that same album, Freedom. And it's a big northern summer for gigs because Glastonbury's a week old now, and it's already been supplanted by two absolutely monstrously huge live events. Ozzy Osbourne's just done his last ever show with a relentlessly big list of people, Guns N' Roses and Metallica, and just about every big metal band in history playing there as well. And the same night was the Oasis first gig as well, which apparently went really well. But I'm focusing on two very interesting paradigms that Glastonbury threw up. And I've been very critical about Coachella being the most corporate festival on earth, but also the fact that there's so little live music at Coachella. Like the amount of bands that, like in the modern era, it's not just backing tracks now. They actually mime their own live vocals at a music festival with no instrumentalist on stage. And I hate that. And that makes you a boomer, apparently, but it's not true. I mean, that's saying that young people can't appreciate people playing instruments or singing live. And I remember like seeing Blackpink there, and they were just like wearing pretty outfits, and they use guide vocals a lot now. So they'll have the lead vocal playing in the background, and they'll just kind of sing lightly over the top of it, and that's all you get. So Charli XCX versus Neil Young. So Charli XCX was on the other stage. Neil Young was on the Pyramid stage on the Saturday night. And it represents a beautiful clashing of worlds. And obviously Charli XCX got the biggest crowd. And there's been this big back and forth about the validity and merits of both acts. The main thing for me is I love Brat, the album by Charli XCX. I'm not camping in the field for 3 days to watch someone get up on stage with a backing track and augmented live vocals, meaning they're basically singing over the top of their live vocals, and costumes and dancing. I'm not going to a music festival in a field for that. I want to listen to Brat at home. Neil Young, I want to go and see a guy with a legendary songbook, incredible musicians playing every note live. That's why I would personally go to a live music festival. It's got nothing to do with being a boomer. It's got nothing to do with not liking or appreciating the music of Charli XCX or artists that are studio bound. I do. The album Brat was my 4th best album of last year. Von Dutch was my 3rd best track of last year. I certainly loved that album. But she essentially turned up on stage with the world's biggest Bluetooth speaker and pressed play on a Spotify playlist. There was virtually no difference. And I don't think that's as meritorious in that environment. It just doesn't mean anything. It goes to another notion from Coachella, which I detest, which is that the performances are more for the people at home than they are for the crowd. I think we had one with Doja Cat or something at Coachella where she basically didn't acknowledge the crowd, and there were long gaps between each song where they set it all up. So it was broadcast for the people watching on video clips after the live performance. And I don't like that. And obviously the crowd is going to be bigger for Charli XCX than Neil Young because they've pushed it that way in recent years to have more pop acts, so you get a more pop crowd. But Neil Young is a legend. And to have also somebody as difficult as Neil Young, somebody uncompromising that was always going to turn up and do his own thing, which is why we love him. He doesn't do anything easy. He doesn't take the easy road. We were very lucky that he did so many well-known songs for a start. And it was wonderful seeing this, my favourite artists of all time alongside Bowie and Nina Simone. Those are my 3 favourite artists of all time. Who knows if he'll be playing live next year. To me, it was so much more than having someone stand up on stage with a Spotify playlist, press play, and basically mime over the top of your own vocals. It's garbage to me. And that makes you a boomer. But the moments of, beauty and magnificence in Neil Young's set were earned. Not everything was perfect, and that's how it should be, because it's live. You might as well be listening to the music at home. So I detest the modern music festival moving completely away from live music. At the same time, I think Glastonbury, compared to Coachella, still has an awful lot of live bands on. Even if they have headliners which come from the pop realm, which often aren't doing anything live, they still have quite a lot of bands on, whereas Coachella, God knows what's going on there. I think I saw a Saturday night there where the last 4 acts in a row didn't have an instrumentalist on stage. Everything was backing music. Or Calvin Harris at the end, just playing 2 hours of pressing a button. And there's a time and a place for that music, but for me, I'm not camping in a field for 3 days to hear it. So that's one issue. The other one was Kneecap versus Bob Vylan. And I thought Glastonbury played a blinder. So Michael Eavis, I don't know, he's 90 now, so I don't know that he is the person organising it. But all of the Israel lobby and the gun-shy, pathetic politicians like Keir Starmer were on Glastonbury's case because Kneecap, the famed trio from Ireland, who got into a lot of trouble because they dared hold Israel to account for the genocide in Gaza. And people were basically going through their history with a fine-tooth comb and found that they'd said death to Tory MPs in a couple of years ago. And brought that up because that was really what was going on, charging one of them with a terrorist offence. And the world's focus was laser focused on Kneecap, and the BBC saying they're not live streaming it, the gun-shy BBC. So then Bobby Vylan comes on and starts chanting death to the IDF, and they got away with it on the live stream, and I would be absolutely 100% certain that was all deliberate. They used the fact that the world's media were focused on Kneecap to slide this one under the radar. And I saw Bob Vylan at Coachella on their live stream do virtually the same thing. The idea that this was something that he wouldn't do was amazing. And then there's been this very, very interesting paradigm where everyone is critical of Bob Vylan. He's had his management team leave him. He's had his visa to America removed, which was going to happen anyway. Like he would have got into America. People are making out like this is ending his career. People being upset about the words he chanted on stage versus people committing genocide has been something that a lot of people have focused on. How offensive is him chanting death to the IDF versus what we're seeing trickle through the news daily about starving Gazans being shot on order by the IDF? And there have been stories from Haaretz newspaper in Israel about the commanding officers ordering their IDF soldiers to actually shoot every other queuing, starving Gazan. And over 600 now have been shot. We also have a Blackwater-style American-Israeli aid agency running the whole thing, where one of the staff who left has said that they were basically told that they can act with impunity and just to gun people down. That apparently isn't worth Keir Starmer's time or the media's time, but Bob Vylan is. Absolute garbage. And there's people, even like Noel Gallagher, saying, Glastonbury's gone woke. Glastonbury has always been the most political major music festival. From the very beginning, it was a hippie, left-wing, eco-warrior festival. The idea that it has gone political, but the fact they got away with it is amazing. And at least, unlike Coachella, it hasn't been diluted to death. Maybe it will be now. And the BBC have been incredibly gun-shy on this topic. Absolutely appallingly. Only on this topic, mind. And it's interesting that the only people whose freedom of speech was attacked at Glastonbury were talking about Israel. None of the other subjects that came up warranted a sentence in the newspapers. Just that one subject. If you ever want to know how much freedom of speech your country has, criticise Israel and see what happens. So the BBC is saying they won't live stream problematic acts again, but isn't rock and roll supposed to be dangerous and you know, in this context, political? How dangerous is chanting something like that compared to 60,000 people being murdered in Gaza? One of them is apparently the worst thing that's ever happened. Absolute garbage.